Hello, this is the Alchemists Inkwell.
It is your spiritual podcast for grounded people.
And we've already been talking for a long time. We had to be like, wait a second, we need to start recording because it's the energy of today is like taking a breath of fresh air after that whole full moon. I don't know how you felt about that, but I was just like, okay, now I'm like lower energy, just want to chill.
Yeah, the full moon happened in my 12th house with a lot of Piscean energy, bringing up some emotional trauma that is placed in Pisces in my chart. So it's been a very healing, cleansing, therapeutic time through resurfacing of emotions, acknowledging them and making peace with them. So I feel like I haven't sobbed, but I feel like in that comfort that comes after a really good cry. That's where I'm at right now. Yeah, I love that feeling. Like the crying I know has stipulations to it. Like everybody's like, oh no, crying means bad. No, crying means you are healing. And so like I always recommend if you have the opportunity to cry, please let yourself because you're gonna feel so much better afterwards. By the way, this is Emily.
Well, yeah.
We forgot to introduce ourselves.
Did we not do our names again?
No.
I'm Emily.
This is Emily. She's an incredible psychic medium and psychic activator, really good with guides, and one of the best friends that you could ever have. I'm KristaLyn.
She is an amazing astrologer and an incredible astrological magician. She validates everyone's experience and is one of the best friends you could ever have.
Thank you.
And she's my business partner, and I'm so lucky.
And we have so many exciting things that we are ready and thrilled to be able to share with you, but time hasn't caught up to us yet, which is how I feel. So we are going to save those for later episodes, which gave us this really nice pause kind of episode to refocus and recenter and prepare. Because after this week, we are coming into eclipse season. And this eclipse season is a little bit unique because it's the first full eclipse cycle, so to speak, in a renewed since the nodes shifted back in January out of Gemini and Sag and into Taurus and Scorpio. So last November, around mid last November, this new cycle of eclipses was a preview, but now we're diving in and we're getting into what's going to be about a year and a half of new themes of new beginnings and endings in your life. Endings not being bad, being transitional, right? Rebirths. Let's recategorize it as that. So this week, what we wanted to do, since we're coming into a time of surrender, observation, and allowing, we wanted to cover like tips on how to incorporate magic in your everyday life, because surrender, observation, and allowing, those are major points in magic. It's aligning with what the divine is doing in your life. And in order to allow the divine to speak to you, you have to be able to surrender, allow, and observe. So
100%. And doing this a little in advance of eclipse season is going to help you feel more in control when the eclipses happen.
Yeah.
When the eclipses come to us, you'll feel more like you're still doing stuff, even though during eclipses, you're not supposed to do a whole lot of like releasing work or manifestation work or anything like that. You'll still have some magical energy around because you are observing, because you've gotten yourself in the habit, or at least gotten comfortable with doing it in a more daily basis, easy way. The other half of this too is everyone always gets jammed up on having too much information when it comes to spirituality, like genuinely. And you guys have probably all felt that as well. I really need to stop saying you guys, but it's such a habit because I think I'm in California and everyone's a dude. And so in my brain,
yeah, my husband uses y'all
gender
all the
neutral.
time. So yeah.
Like,
we should come up with, what would you like us to call you all? What kind of group name would you like? Like if we were to have a fandom name, what would it be? And we'll start using that. So comment your suggestions of what you would like to be referenced as, and we will pick the one that feels the most representative of our group. And we'll start using that to represent everybody in this. That sounds fun.
I think that's a good idea, because I don't want to keep saying you guys, but again, I think my brain connects it to dude, which is gender neutral, which it's not, but it like just anyway.
To all the souls who are listening.
If all you souls sparkles, we could call them sparkles.
Oh my God. You want to be sparkles? That's what a baby unicorn's called for context, but let us know if you want us to call you sparkles.
We get sparkle stickers.
We do.
beside the point. You've probably noticed this as well in your own life at some point in time when you're getting into spirituality or when you're diving into a new concept or even in a day to day. There's so much information on what you should be doing during the day, or all the things that you can do, or all these different types of spirituality that feels like, one, you may feel like you need to know everything about everything right off the bat, which is a limiting belief. You don't need to know everything about everything right off the bat. But two, it makes it kind of hard to weed through what are good things to do for your day to day. What are simple things that you can incorporate without feeling like you're overloading your plate with meditating for 30 minutes and then journaling for an hour and then making sure you're checking your astrology stuff and then pulling cards. Like, it's so much. So we wanted to give you kind of simple and easy ways to incorporate some stuff so that you can feel like you are more observing the magic that's happening instead of being the driving force that has to make everything work.
Yeah. And let's structure this as we are offering a menu of options, and you can choose on the menu what you would like to incorporate into your life. Not necessarily routine, because we don't want this to be a to-do list that you check off. That actually will create a block for the energy.
Mhm.
Like, one of the things that I do every morning, and it does have a certain time that it has to take place, and it does have a certain, way that it needs to be done. Someone commented on my magic post the other day on TikTok about, being so wrapped up in getting it right and doing the correct invocations that they felt like they weren't in the process. That's
Mhm.
absolutely something that happens. And I gave tips on how I navigate that. But this shouldn't be something that makes you feel restricted or bound by something that is outside of yourself in any way, or that is out of alignment with you in any way. It should feel like something that is bringing you more into alignment, something that channels you, and like, it's like a crystal wand, kind of like it gives a focus to the energy.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it, is it does feel like it gives a focus. And also in giving you a menu, you can be like, today I want to do this because that feels good. Honestly, I don't have a consistent spiritual routine outside of clearing my energy every time I go to the bathroom. Um, that's my go-to energy clearing space. It's the most grounded you ever are throughout the day. It's the most human thing you can do. Also, it creates such a strong habit because every time you walk into the bathroom, your energy will naturally start clearing. You can sit down and do that. It grounds you at the same time. That's my consistent everyday routine. That's it.
Mhm. Yep.
Every time I go to the bathroom. But I still do something of growth, spiritual something in some capacity at some point during the day, mostly because it feels natural, mostly because it feels good. And that's what I want to encourage everybody to do, is something that feels natural and good. Sometimes it's scrapbooking all of the spiritual things that have happened. I have a spiritual scrapbook that I do for myself. It's like creating my own grimoire, but I don't do spells. So it's not like that. It's more like ahas I've had or things like that, but it's just fun and it's aesthetic and I can sit there and do it and I like it. Sometimes it's listening to a song that I really like and screaming it as I drive without my kids in the car. Those are all spiritual things too that help you feel really aligned and call in additional energy. One other thing I do on a daily basis, which I always want to highlight. It doesn't matter what day this is. I do it every single day, even if it's full moon, new moon, doesn't matter. But I will always either think or say out loud my meditation or my manifestation statements, not my meditation, my manifestation statements. I continually align with myself with those energies all the time, especially when I'm trying to manifest something really big and concrete. I especially do that one multiple times a day. I will say my statements of their present tense with a deadline. I only do 3 at a time max. If I'm trying to manifest one strongly, I'll drop the other 2 and just focus on that one until that comes through. But I read it out loud and I visualize it happening essentially with my energy, with my mind, if I see it, whatever it is. And that is something I do every day. And I just have this, like, I'll put it on like a sticky note next to my computer. And it's just there. And that way, every time I look at it, I say it again. And that is a really fun and easy way to get super aligned with spiritual stuff really easily.
Yeah.
Do you do something like that?
My whole day ends up being a spiritual routine, and I really want everybody to kind of think about that way too, because what you're already doing
Mm-hmm.
is something that you're inclined to do. So how is what you are already doing spiritual? Like,
That's very
I
true.
wake up very early, and I exercise for quite a while, but I also have Mars in Pisces in the 5th and Venus, the ruler of my sun, in the 6th in Aries. So physical exercise is very important for me to be able to ground myself with, like, align with my physical body, ground my energy, cleanse my energy through movement. It's
Mhm.
so important for me to do that. And to be able to do that in the right moderation with the right balance is another thing. Like my nutrition becomes a part of my spiritual routine because it's how I nourish and sustain the vehicle I use to navigate the life. But so I exercise in the morning and that becomes spiritual. I have a dialogue with my guides going on the entire time because otherwise I'll get totally bored. And then after that, at sunrise, I have an apothecary. Like some of you may remember that I was creating an apothecary for my astrological magic routines, but also because I'm gonna make my own incense, my own candles, so I needed a space to do that. And this apothecary has a window that faces the horizon in the east, so I can see the sunrise, and of course it's perfect. And a couple years ago, my mom had reupholstered a kneeler, like a one-person kneeler she found, and I have these daily planetary invocations that I got when I learned my astrological magic. So every morning at sunrise, I go in on my kneeler and I do the planetary invocation for that day. And I just watch the sun come up. And it's just like a nice way of honoring that, like, there's a beginning of a new cycle happening. I'm watching it and I am part of it. And I'm in my sacred space that is designed for all of this energy and feels as real as possible with plants everywhere. And it's wonderful. And then when I'm preparing my breakfast and like putting ingredients into things, I'm thinking about what that ingredient is and how I'm honoring where it came from. Cinnamon is bark. Thank you for the tree. And like all of this stuff, this gratitude that goes into it, which is kind of like saying grace before you eat a meal. I'm just doing it as I create the meal as well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm constantly reading about astrology or something spiritual, which isn't necessarily a spiritual practice, but it educates and informs my worldview, which I think is important. And then interacting with you is a huge anchor in my spiritual day. And throughout the day, I'm walking around talking to either my guides, the divine, I call the divine God, and my puppies. I talk to them because I consider them my little spirit guides too.
Well, they definitely are. Animals are wonderful spirit guides. People will ask quite often, I get this question quite a bit, like, can actual people be your spirit guides? Like, are the people around? Yes. And your animals? Yes, absolutely. We incarnate to be other people's spirit guides without even knowing it too. And that is a very real thing. But yeah, I totally believe in your animals. I think that's important to note when you said your sacred space. I think that's so valuable. If you don't have a space in your house that feels sacred and yours and good to be in, that's something I would definitely encourage for you to develop and create for yourself. It doesn't have to be huge. You don't even have to have it like be a ritual space. It can just be like a chair in the corner next to your favorite plant that has a little table where you put your book. Like, that's enough. But having just a little bit of space where you feel aligned and you feel like you is so valuable. If you can make it your whole house, by all means do it. It's like making yourself a temple, and it's great. My entire house is outlined in quartz crystals because when we moved in, I decided that's what I was going to do. And so it is. But is my whole house, does it all feel like a temple? No, I have 3 children. So my house is chaos. It doesn't always feel good to be in, but my space that I have that is for me feels really nice. And so I make sure at least once a day, even if it's just for 5 minutes, just sitting in this space that feels the most like you, that feels the most aligned, is really, really going to help.
I have sacred geometry in the 4 corners of my house.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's funny because they're generally out of sight so that they'll be out of mind and not make anybody uncomfortable who, may be unfamiliar with them. But one time we had moved furniture and my mother-in-law was here and she was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a card that a friend gave me and it's supposed to go there. It's good for the energy." Like, I don't know how to like dive into the sacred geometry of the north, south, east, and west and all this stuff that goes along with it, because that's a lot to unload on someone. And that's not what they're asking for when they say, "What's that?" And me, I over-inform. That's one of my traits. So I have to be very conscious about that as well. And it's really funny to just, when I was first looking for a house, I was meditating one day. And the message in the meditation was, you need to start visualizing what house you want. And I was like, what? We were living in an apartment. We had just gotten our first puppy, Jack. And like, we had to walk him outside on a leash where people were on the benches and like coming over to pet him all the time. And I'm just like, can you not? So we wanted a yard. And I was like, okay, I want a yard, but I want to live in a tree house. And I'm like, just give me a tree house somehow. And I ended up in, you've seen it, Emily, basically a tree house. And fortunately enough, because housing was so, well, at least this house, because of the state it was in when we got it, it was very accessible to us within our means at the time. And so it has a lot of rooms. Not all of them make sense. But it is enough that my husband and I, who do not have children outside of our fur babies, I have like 3 rooms that are just mine, and he has like 3 rooms that are just his. And they function for us. And it's really good for us as whole and complete individuals who are navigating life together, which is how I like to define relationships, to be able to have those spaces to do the things that we need to do, and then have the communal spaces to come together and really be intentionally together. So it works for us.
I'm currently manifesting something similar. So that is my
I'm so excited.
manifestation I'm reading every day, which is amazing. I just told Krista before we hopped on, I am so done with my wardrobe, because picking out your clothes and dressing this vessel every day is a very spiritual thing. And it can be, especially if you lean into it. I know a lot of times you're like, what, I have to go to work. And I used to work in a corporate space too, a corporate sports space. So it was a very weird energy as far as what I had to wear, because some days I was wearing like long underwear to go skiing in, and some days I was wearing like business attire. But so I have some of that stuff left over, but I totally understand when people do feel that limitation of like, oh, I have to go to work, so I have to dress like this. There's still little things you can do. You know, your jewelry can have intention, or the color of your nails can have intention. You can put crystals in your pockets or your bra or whatever. But that setting yourself up for the day that way energetically is really, really powerful. And what you wear and what you put on your body can show a lot of intention that you're having. And it's a simple thing. You don't have to get dressed. So if you just think about it and give energy to the garments you're putting on, that's the energy that you're going to hold and have throughout your day. Currently, I'm like, I need to throw half of my clothes completely away. I'll donate them, but I want them gone, and I need new ones because it doesn't feel like me anymore. And it doesn't make it a spiritual experience. It makes it something I'm dreading. And every time there's something I'm dreading, that's always my big like, oop, something needs to change about this little thing. Like, I should not be annoyed by making breakfast. It means I need to buy different types of food because I'm bored with the ones here or whatever it is. And I love like you're like, thank you to the cinnamon bark. That's the same kind of energy, right? Like, thank you to this piece of clothing. You hold so much memory for me. I'm
Marie
so
Kondo
excited
says that, right?
Yeah. It makes such a huge difference in your spiritual health. Also, if you get random things you feel like doing, do them. A while ago, I got a ping. It was very much from the Fairies, who I work with fairly closely, and they were like, "We want a thing for us." And it was like, "Just anything," and they're like, "Just anything." So I have a box on my windowsill filled with a bunch of like crystals that they have told me over months that they wanted, and they go in that box. And if anything gets set on top of it, I hear about it from them. And so the other day, I kept getting this like headache. Usually, my spirit guides, when they're trying to talk to me, they poke me on the right side of my head, like distinctly heavy finger poke. And I'm like, okay, I'm obviously ignoring you. Like, what do you need? But I was getting it on the other side, the left side. And I was like, well, this is weird. Couldn't figure it out. I was like, maybe I just have a headache. I even like went to go take ibuprofen, and my guides were like, no. And I was like, well, then what is it? I'm drinking caffeine. I'm drinking a ton of water. Like, I don't know what it is. I go in there. The curtain had been dropped on top of the box for the Fairies. And I was like, oh, never mind. Push that off. It went away immediately. Haven't had it since. They were just complaining. So if you have those things, though, that you're like, I feel like I just need to buy this plant at the store and put it in my windowsill and put a bunch of crystals in it and give it water because I feel like I need to, that is perfectly valid. There's no way you're gonna do it wrong. And I always want to say that to people, because people get so caught up in this notion of like having to do it right and having to make it perfect. And that is a very human notion. That is not a very spiritual notion. There is so much more intuition that comes in the more you give yourself permission to not have to deal with the fact that you of wrong and right, or making it like you're going to fail at it or anything like that. So if there's anything you take from this episode, please take that. Please take that, like, whatever the way you feel like you're aligned to do it is the right way to do it. Period.
Yeah. And I bring this up. I was participating in another podcast episode earlier this weekend, talking about some of the stuff that we talk about as well. One of the things that is coming up a lot lately is that in religion, there are a lot of rules. The goal is usually to find a personal connection with the divine as that religion perceives it. So like growing up as a Christian, it was always, well, you have to nurture and establish your one-on-one connection with God. But then those rules sort of make that hard, because they're not rules that you would create in a loving and unconditional loving relationship with someone, let alone the divine. And so I think it's really important to understand that there are rituals and guides and things that you can do that align you with the divine, and that they don't have to become as rigid and conditional. When they become conditional, when it's like, I have to do this or I will be condemned or something bad,
Yep.
then you want to reestablish or reevaluate what you're doing. Because as I was explaining to a friend the other day, when something is going wrong or hard, or you're feeling psychically under attack, which is an entirely different episode that we can do if anybody's interested, comment about it. Generally, it is because you are being realigned, and you're being made to feel uncomfortable so that you get out of the situation that is not in alignment and move yourself back to alignment, which is comfortable and is fun and is, at peace. So if you're feeling out of alignment, which is not having fun, not enjoying yourself, feeling overly judged or disciplined, or, however you might feel that in your feelings, realign yourself. Say, what would make me feel in connection with the divine? What would make me feel like this is something we talk about with our clients all the time. What will make me feel like I have a seat at the table with my guides, and I have a seat at the table with the divine? Because they don't want you to be beneath them. You're not doing as much as you could be doing and accomplishing as much as you can achieve spiritually and in life when you are lowering yourself beneath those who are there to support you energetically in the physical and in the spiritual. So realizing that you have a place at the table and that you are the navigation system through this physical world, that's important. So honor your own place in that process and see which routines and techniques really help you connect so that you can receive your direction and in the best way.
Yeah.
And that has places in astrology where we can kind of look at that kind of thing. And I love doing that too.
Yeah. The other thing of that too is like honoring your fun, your joy, your excitement, your inspiration. Like, where do you feel like whenever you're having fun, you're in alignment? Genuinely, like if it is real, true fun that makes you feel inspired and excited and joyful, like, yep, that's alignment. That's what it feels like. So anytime you can find a space in your day to honor even just that much, mine is always, not only do I read fiction books constantly because it's a huge form of spirituality for me, it's what makes me feel in alignment. It allows me to expand on my spiritual gifts. That's always the number one tip I give anyone ever. If they're like, how can I start getting better? Read fiction books.
Yep.
Read fiction books about magical places, magical worlds, things that go on, because it's going to teach you these spiritual concepts in a way that can actually be navigated in our life. Plus, it expands your visualization, your energetic feeling, sensing, all of that. So there's that element to it, but it's also just fun for me. And so that's the way, even just for like 10 minutes a day, I can feel aligned with myself, because I know even if I've had a horrible day, for 10 minutes, I'm going to read and I will feel aligned and fun in that moment. And just doing something simple like that can shift your spiritual perspective, shift your growth, everything in such a concrete way. And it's simple to incorporate, which I always want to highlight, because if it's something where you're like, I want to paint for 10 minutes a day, but really it's going to be 45 minutes a day because it's going to take you so long to set up and then take down or whatever it is, probably not in the best alignment for you, because that's what you're going to start putting stuff off. You're not going to have time for that unless you really want to set aside the time and you make that so concrete and full of boundaries, which right now a lot of people don't have that ability to do. And so find something that you can honor yourself with that's small. It's going to help you wake up. It's going to help you activate. It's going to help you do all these different things, even though it's just a small bit where you're remembering yourself just a little bit, and can be really huge. I know Krista is a master at this. You're so good at doing things that you like find fun and joyful for yourself, which I like really value and appreciate. I'm always a throw my stuff on the back burner person because, again, I have 3 children and I think that's just the habit I got into for so long. And now they're just now old enough for me to be like, wait, that's right, I exist here too. I should do some stuff. But it doesn't have to be that significant and difficult. It can be something small and still be really aligned and help you get out of that space that's in, out of alignment and back into alignment, just really simply.
Yeah, it's a journey of deconditioning for sure, to be able to recognize your desires outside of what you feel are your obligations to others. And I'm, of course, going through a year in astrology where that is a theme for me. So I spent this whole year learning to decondition, and as my husband has put it, learning to unmask a lot of things about myself, and to accept who I am and like ways that I've always done things, and just let that be okay with others. and not have to like conceal it so much. Um, and I think that that's really important. Just knowing that if someone has a reaction or a feeling about something you do, that's their reaction or their feeling. And it's their responsibility. As long as you don't have ill intention and you're not intentionally trying to hurt or make someone feel uncomfortable, you being you and embracing you is the best thing you can do. It's also the best example you can set for people. And it helps you draw your boundaries. And boundaries are not, I'm not going to let you near me. Boundaries are, this is how I need to be cared for. Period. You're teaching people how to treat you, and you're teaching them what you need in order for you to give your best and for them to get the best from you. It's actually a win-win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Unless the boundary is because someone is so negative and toxic, you are like, don't come near me. It's a win for you.
Sometimes the best they can get from you is nothing.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very, very true.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is you're deconditioning overthinking. Genuinely.
Yeah.
Because we have been trained from the time we were itty bitty to overthink everything, especially if you are a female presenting person or ever lived as a female presenting person. That's especially a lot because you're constantly told like you're responsible for everybody else's reaction and comfort and the things around them and all of these different things that you have to monitor their, like how they're going to come off, all of this different energy. And when it comes to spiritual stuff, we like to apply the same blankets we've been wearing forever to that. And that's just not how it works. So gradually backing that off, that notion of I have to overthink how to do this right, or I have to make this perfect, right? There's a way, I have to do the right thing today or the thing that's perfect for today. And then you jam yourself up. Just go with whatever feels the best, because that is actively deconditioning and unmasking the parts of yourself that have had this notion that you have to be responsible for everything. You have to do it right. You have to overthink all of the things, or if something bad will happen, all of those pieces together.
And it really helps to get yourself out of your own head with that kind of thing.
Mm.
One of the techniques my husband and I use, I believe I got it from Brene Brown, not positive, but I'm pretty sure, is this is the story I'm telling myself. Is it true? And so my husband will tell me something and I'll be like, ooh, who told you that? And when you can identify, oh, because even if you don't have someone told me this, your subconscious will be like, oh, my mom. Whose voice do you hear it in your head? Because sometimes it doesn't come through in your own voice. I'll hear things and they're in my mom's voice. And it's like, oh, I learned this by watching my mom. Not necessarily that my mom imposed this on me, but it's how I interpreted something in a situation. So like, I don't blame parents necessarily. I know from my astrology that my poor mother was always going to be my way of establishing my rules in life. So whatever she did, that's how I was going to observe her. So in my situation, or at least in this situation, it's helpful for me to understand that like this is coming through in my mom's voice. It's something that I interpreted from my experience with my mother figure, with my father figure, with a previous relationship, with even current relationships or friendships. Sometimes it'll come through in a friend's voice from middle school. And it's like, well, if that's their voice, then it's not something I told myself. And if it's not something I told myself, I have no foundation with which to support my belief in it until it comes through in my voice. So I should really investigate how I feel about this now. And that is a process of deconditioning. It's saying, this isn't my voice. If it were my voice, what would I say now? And then it becomes your voice. And you can really, that's another belief work technique too.
Yeah, absolutely. On the belief work note too, I do belief work every day because it's such a part of life. Once you really get into doing belief work for yourself, and there's so many ways to do that out there. So many ways. We could even do a whole episode just on like different types of belief work if you guys want us to do that, because we could
Really
easily fill an hour talking about ways to do that. So let us know if you want us to. But once you really start getting into belief work, it does become something that is so integral to the way that you experience the world that you will end up doing it every day, or at least once a week at the very, very, very least. I don't know anyone, I think, who started belief work and doesn't do it every day, though, genuinely.
You
Because
catch
every
it
day
and you
you're
can
finding
fix
something
it.
new, and you can just pull and switch that to something else. And then the next day you're like, oh, this is something different because my day has changed and this is an older thing. And it encompasses ancestral beliefs and beliefs you have had since you were a kid and past life beliefs, you name it, like they all come into play in this space. And you can do so much work on it. It's really empowering. So I I mean, my go-to time to do that is in the shower because it's the best time I have to think. And my belief work ritual doesn't involve any sort of writing. There are so many that do. Um, Talking out loud can also be really helpful, but that is another thing to dive into if you're like, I don't know how to incorporate spiritual stuff, or I don't know how to sit here and observe, and I don't want to do like spells or rituals or anything like that, which is totally fine. Belief work is a great one. It's huge and it will make such a large impact in your life very quickly too. Very, very quickly.
Yeah, my preferred place to do it is again on the treadmill in the morning,
Mhm.
because as I'm walking, when I've just finished exercising, I feel strong. So there's no issue of me feeling the weakness that I don't like to feel in some of the beliefs that I'm trying to change. So I've already remembered who I am, and I am empowered then to resolve and forgive and, bless anything that I'm allowing to heal and process and change in my beliefs. So it's the best place for me to be able to have the courage to do that. I'm a very Mars dominant person, in case it's not obvious. I like how also we've color coordinated today with our reds.
Look at
Tomorrow's
that.
Mars Day, but still, yeah. So, but it is helpful to know that your sacred space could be on the treadmill. It could be in the bathroom. It could be
100%.
anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, you don't need to be in some sort of meditation or sacred space to talk to the divine or talk to your guides. Like,
Yeah.
I talk to mine constantly. Like, the amount of times I've said stuff to my guides with my head in my refrigerator is so much.
Or just in the car.
Oh,
Yeah.
constantly.
That's like my
All the
favorite
time.
place to talk to my guides, because I can talk
Yeah.
out loud.
Yeah. Or if I'm like frustrated about something, I'll literally be like, what am I supposed to know? Like, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter where I am. I'm just like, tell me, because I can't do it. I need to know.
Yeah.
And I don't immediately always get an answer. Sometimes I need to sit in the frustration. Sometimes there's other things to it, but you can talk to them constantly. There's no rules about that. There's no
No.
like, you need to be in this deep state. Like, just throw stuff at them. Like, half the time I'm like, what should I do today? Like,
Yep.
give
I
me
remember
guidance.
when I initiated the sequence of events that led me to here and now working with you, it was like 2017, I think, day after Christmas, and I was fed up. Saturn had just come in to interact with my Saturn return. I didn't know this at the time, but it turned out that way, and I was ticked. And I mean, like, mad that my life was not going the way I thought it should be going. And everything around me just seemed like everybody else was getting movement. And I was somehow getting put in a corner, is what it felt like. So I raged. And rather than rage at someone that, like, in my life that I knew didn't deserve it, I went on a walk. I sat under a tree. I pounded the ground and I said, okay, God, if this is what you want me to be doing with my life, I need a sign tomorrow, or I'm giving up. If you want me to be giving up, I will give up tomorrow. If you don't, you better give me something by tomorrow so that I know that this is where I need to be, because I want to do what you want me to do. I want to be in alignment. I want to live my purpose. I can't keep going like this. I woke up to an email that changed everything. So it's, God, your guides, whomever you're connecting with, will honor your feelings. And usually I remember something happened in my family to a family member once. And I said, I communicated, I said, why did you do that? That's going to make them not want to connect more. And the message I got was, I needed to bring them to their lowest because they'll finally talk to me there. And that's what happens sometimes. We're just chugging along. We forget to check in, and you get what I call God smacked. There are hints before that, but if you miss them, you get God smacked. And it's this hard stop or a low that you hit where it's like, oh crap, I've gone as far as I can go. Hey, give me an out. Like, someone help me out here. I forgot to ask. Here I am. And it's, again, not a horrible thing. It just feels horrible at the time, but it is the end of a struggle and the turning and the pivoting towards renewal.
And
And that
sometimes
really
it can
was.
be a literal smack that you're just ignoring stuff.
I've known people that literally trip on the curb and like get their face hit, and it made them realize
I think
something.
the last time I got godsmacked, I was eating a tortilla chip. My favorites. I'm a neurodivergent person, so I have dopamine foods. And my favorite snack of all time is either tortilla chips with salsa or tortilla chips with queso. And that's it. And it's never failed me. I've never not wanted it. I could eat it any time of day. One of those.
I have those. Yeah.
So I was eating a tortilla chip like I do all of the time. And for some reason, it got lodged in the roof of my mouth to the point where I had to like go get tweezers and like pull it out. And I was like, this is a Godsmack. What am I missing? And it's like that distinctive because it was like I had to stop everything I was doing to focus on the pain of whatever it was that was happening, and had to think about as I was pulling it out, which is horrible. Sorry if that creeped anyone out. But really I had to like think about it and be like, oh, and then I was bleeding and I had to deal with that. And I was like, oh, this is a pause button. I was ignoring stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff needed
And
to
your
be paid
body was
attention
giving you a pain
to.
to feel. Yeah.
So, and of course, it was something regarding speaking my truth because then my mouth swelled up and I couldn't speak, and I was like, "Oh, this is what's going on."
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I get that.
sometimes they're like literal smacks. They hurt. It's
Yeah.
not pleasant.
I woke up in the middle of the night the other night, and I just felt it. Like I knew I was going to have a nosebleed. So I run to the bathroom and I'm like groaning. And as I'm tending to this, I was like, okay, metaphysically, you bleed when your feelings have come to a bursting point and you haven't acknowledged them. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, what am I not feeling? And the next thing I know, it's like, you've been ignoring this and you have feelings about this and you need to talk to someone about it. And it's like, okay, not right now. It's 2 a.m., but first thing in the morning, I will do that. And if I forget, give me another nosebleed. Sure enough, I forgot. And I got another nosebleed the next morning, remembered. And as soon as I remembered, I was like, oh yeah, the nosebleed stopped. Done. And that's how it works for me. And, you know, I have a medical situation where my blood is very thin. So it's a very reliable hint for me, kind of like your head thing. Sometimes for me, it's a feeling between my eyes, but sometimes it's truly just a nosebleed is my hint when I haven't listened well enough. And then I was able to make that connection for someone else, actually. And all was resolved.
Reminds me of a funny story. I don't think I told it on here. I think I told it on TikTok. But the other day I was like pissed at the world, to be totally like I was just grumpy. Everything felt yucky. I was just having a day, and we all get to have those, even very spiritual among us, because this is the grounded podcast. You still get to feel like shit sometimes, and that's fine. It was one of those days, and I was working. It was a bunch of financial stuff and like big kid things that I like didn't want to deal with. Let's be 100% honest. So I went downstairs to complain about like financial things and house things, and just I was just really gonna complain, and I opened my mouth and my nose started bleeding, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm not supposed to. Sorry, can't complain. And everything was fine. Everything worked out great. I was not supposed to complain. I was not supposed to manifest that energy further. It was not supposed to be something, but it was so funny because it was literally like, and bleed. And I was just like,
That does remind me of another spiritual technique I use that is quite unconventional and not the usual expected thing. When we moved into our house, one of the things that kind of struck us was the amount of taxes and the various ways in which they come for you. And so my husband and I were just like, this bill, and why can't they just make it easier? And yes, the system could absolutely be improved, but we had no control over that. So I was thinking, okay, how can I make this spiritual? How can I literally make paying my bills a spiritual abundance method? And so as I would write the checks, I would be writing them in gratitude for the fact that this energy exchange was nurturing my home, that this energy exchange was supporting the foundations of my home, was, you know, creating my shelter, very second house stuff. Like, thank you for my abundance. Thank you for my shelter. Thank you for my worldly needs being met. And that really helped. And now, like, we're certainly not like rolling in anything when it comes to paper money and stuff, but we are definitely not scared. And we're not living in fear of finances, and we don't view finances as something that controls us. And that difference allows us to know that when we need something, it will be there, rather than being fixated on the means of money instead of the ends of what we can acquire and what we're looking to acquire. Because sometimes you want something that you think money's going to get you, but money's not the best way to get it. So if you can just remove that and consider, like, thank you for being a means to my comforts. Thank you for, you know, whatever. That is so helpful. So literally your everyday, as we said earlier, is spiritual. And if you can acknowledge that and be more intentional with it, you've already got a routine going. As we're entering into eclipse season, though, it's really helpful to be able to add things that make it feel even more real to you, so that as these changes and new cycles are coming in, you can say, oh, there it is, rather than, oh my God, what's happening?
Yeah. On that note too, do you want to touch a little bit about what they can expect from the astrology coming up
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
week? Because I
So
know it's actually kind of chill,
it's,
which is a
yeah,
weird thing
it's
to say.
the heaviest part, or the most active big transits are kind of, I like to say 2022 was very front heavy. So the rest of the year, especially once we are through the eclipse season in like by the end of May, we do have this sort of steadying out, and not so, it's not like fireworks every other week kind of thing.
Perfect.
From the 22nd through the 28th of April. On the 24th, we have Mercury square Saturn, while the moon forms a sextile relationship with Neptune. So that's going to be conflict with structures and obligations, and opportunities to see things kind of out of the box. This also is going to be like Mercury square Saturn is, Mercury is your thinking and the motor of your brain. Saturn is structure. So them coming at odds with each other, it's going to require critical thinking skills. So it's being able to look at something, understand it, and see it. This is why I love analogies, and I'm being pulled to say this. If you can make an analogy out of something, and I do this on TikTok, if you have a spiritual concept or literally anything right now, if you are struggling with something, especially with this transit coming up, and you wish you could have an analogy for it that makes it easy, like when I talk about an astrology chart, those glyphs in that circle and those slices and like whatever, it's so complicated until I tell you that an astrology chart is literally a pizza. When it's a pizza, it's easy. And it's not scary anymore because you understand pizza and you can get how pizza and is an astrology chart and the other way. There's a video on my TikTok that explains this if you need it. But if you have anything else like that, where it's like, I wish I had an analogy for this because I need to be able to understand it, and I need to realize that it's easy and it's not something out of my depth and it's not something that's above me, let me know. We'll do that, because to me, critical thinking can be fun in the form of analogies. And, you know, puzzles. This is why I like Legend of Zelda so much, because it's a video game that incorporates puzzles. And so you look around and you assess your resources and you can do these critical thinking skills, and empowers you to use these techniques. At the same time, with that sextile with Neptune happening, we are thinking outside of the box. Neptune breaks down the barriers and dissolves them. So it's critical thinking with creative application. So you're getting tricky. It's kind of like MacGyvering something, taking what you have and making something completely unconventional with it. But hey, this works. This is helpful. So that's something that I feel like it's knowing where to bend the rules, where the rules are more flexible and you can have some leeway to make something happen in a higher expression than it might have been before. On the 27th, Mercury is going to form a sextile with Jupiter, while Venus conjoins Neptune. Jupiter and Neptune are still within a degree of each other at the time of this recording, and now Venus is going to come around too. So kind of like how we had this basic triple conjunction between Venus, Mars, and Saturn, the two malefics and Venus, where she was besieged by them. Now we have Venus, who is conjoining Neptune, and Jupiter's there too. So the two benefics and Neptune really putting salve on the burn is what it feels like. Yeah. So Mercury also forming that sextile with Jupiter. It's opportunities, especially now that Mercury has gone on the other side of the nodes. If you look at a chart, all the planets are in one half of the chart, divided by the north and south node, which are the eclipse points. Mercury is now on the other side of the north node. So it's kind of broken the barrier. It's the first one to emerge and take a breath. And so it's opportunities to think differently with this possibly inflated idealism, like, wow, look at the sunshine and butterflies. It's so much nicer now. And really use that to envision the highest and best that you want for yourself. Let yourself imagine, let yourself believe that good things can come, because we're coming out of a time where it's hard to believe that. Restore your faith in yourself, in humanity, in the world, in the divine. However you feel like you need to do that. There's a lot of forgiveness, a lot of healing, a lot of acceptance that can go along with this, and witness your feelings from an outside perception. Neptune is really great with this. Also, that Mercury Jupiter interaction is saying, like, I can see this from a higher perspective and appreciate it. So it's talking to yourself as if you were talking to a friend. That way you're being kind to yourself, and you're also having that objective perspective and wanting to really bolster and empower that friend. Then finally on the 28th, oh, go ahead.
But just on that note, sometimes when I have big feelings and I'm trying to figure out what they're going to teach me, I will make them into little critters and I'll talk to them in my head.
Aw.
So like my
Yeah.
anxiety is a squirrel a lot. And I will talk to my squirrel and see what is going on. And that
Yeah.
can be really, really helpful. Even if you have like a stuffed animal or something and you want to
Or
like
a plant.
make your feeling that, or a plant, or like whatever it is, like just to take it outside of yourself, it really helps. So
Yeah.
that's my little tip on that note. And it also makes it more playful and you tend to take it less seriously when you have a squirrel sitting there who wants to talk to you about your feelings. Like, it feels nice.
Yeah, I have a Virgo midheaven, so I like to imagine that I'm teaching a course and helping people understand the concept that I'm actually trying to understand myself.
There you go.
So if I put myself in the position of mentor or teacher, I'm being gentle with the people that I'm trying to explain to, and I'm also being simple, giving analogies and making it relatable, making it understandable, and making it fair. And that's one of my ways to do it too. But I've also had a client where I, suggested talk to a plant like it's your inner child, and just explain to it what's going on and, why you love it and all that stuff. And then the final aspect is Mercury trine a stationing Pluto. So we have had a period now where all the planets have been direct. And I like to say, like, it's like our feet have gotten ahead of us in running. You ever run so fast that your feet are moving faster than the rest of you and you're kind of like losing balance because it's just moving too fast, too forward. We've had a run of that where everybody's been going direct. So it kind of feels like life is happening really quickly and we're just trying to keep up, maybe at pace, maybe half a step behind. So Mercury is trining this Pluto, which is getting ready to station retrograde and give us a little bit of retrograde motion in the sky, which is going to help the pace of life kind of feel a little bit slower as these planets begin their on again, off again, retrograde, not retrograde, like getting back into a blend rather than an excess of direct. So this is an opportunity to take notice of what's transforming in your life. It's going to be easy to see what is happening. It may even be easy to go within and allow that transformation to begin and say, this is what needs to be honored and rebirthed in me. And that's perfect with the eclipse season coming up, which we will discuss in the next episode in depth. But this is how you can prepare for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of nice. If you're really low energy this week, yes.
Rest. Yeah.
Just the answer is just yes to that. Like, you're literally I think everyone's going to be kind of low energy because we just are kind of right now. It's like if the pendulum's not swinging, if you're just like for a second before it goes the other way, you're just taking that like reprieve. So allow yourself that space. You get to have it. Isn't that fun? Permission.
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
Awesome. But thank you all so much for tuning in this week. You all works, I guess. It's just not very fun for a term to call everybody. But thank you all so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you. We do have some fun announcements coming up, especially if you're a bookish fellow or you would like to write a book. Just stay tuned the next couple weeks because we're really going to start to dive into that stuff and give you some cool opportunities there coming up. And yeah, we really appreciate you. Again, if you want to see us do this with our faces, you can look at us on YouTube, The Alchemists Inkwell. We would love to have you on there. That's also where Krista posts her incredible month-long astrology info forecasts. Those are really awesome, not only because you can just watch it all the way through and be like, oh, I know all the things, but you can also watch it in like pieces as it relates to like what's going on, and it's super helpful. So I definitely recommend you check those out. Or just get a reading with her if you want something more specific, because she's awesome that way.
And I love geeking out about you guys. It's so exciting.
Absolutely. But yes, thank you so much. We hope that you take this week and you go make some magic.
Ooh, that was so smooth.
I know.